Welcome back. Today, we're stepping into a concept that is, honestly, it's genuinely mind-bending. Just imagine, if you will, a physical space where every single abandoned possibility, every discarded path, and every obsolete tomorrow is kept perfectly preserved. We're diving into the incredible narrative of the Archive of Failed Futures. It's this brilliant sci-fi concept by Max and Claude, and it uses the lens of temporal physics to explore something we all feel deeply: regret. I want you to stop and think for a second. Where do our abandoned dreams actually go? Think about your own life for a minute. That career path you didn't take, the city you almost moved to, the relationship that just didn't work out. What if those unfulfilled expectations didn't just disappear into the ether, but actually accumulated narrative weight somewhere? What if they existed, right now, just out of sight? Okay, let's dive into this. We've got a really fascinating journey ahead. We'll start with the hidden collection, move into a crisis called the Paradise Gambit, explore preventive nostalgia therapy, witness the next generation debugging tomorrow, and finally, uncover the archive's dream.
So, Part 1, the hidden collection, and the status quo. We're going to meet Omi Verschorn, who literally stumbled into the most extraordinary job imaginable.
Omi is the curator of the Archive of Failed Futures. So what exactly is this place? Well, it's a temporal repository that exists entirely outside of linear time. Its absolute sole purpose is the preservation and study of possibilities that fail to manifest in our consensus reality. Physically, it's this vast complex filled with containment fields, and it bridges heavy sci-fi concepts with a deeply relatable human emotion, nostalgia. Omi's job is basically to keep these restless futures contained, preventing them from bleeding into our present.
And the things contained here are just spectacular. You've got massive cultural dreams like the classic 1950s vision of flying cars and robot servants. There's Chlorophyll City, which is a timeline where humans learn to photosynthesize, full of graceful green-tinted people. There's even a timeline where email was literally never invented. Actually, when that specific containment field leaked, people in the real world suddenly had this inexplicable urge to hire calligraphers and buy fountain pens. But alongside these massive sci-fi futures, there are also millions of personal containment units holding abandoned career dreams and lost loves.
But of course, the status quo can't last forever. That brings us to our second chapter, the Paradise Gambit. This is the catalyst that changes everything. You have to understand the sheer scale of the crises Omi faces here. The nuclear apocalypse future, which is fueled by 40 years of Cold War dread, has accumulated so much narrative weight that it's actually breaching its containment. It is actively trying to end the world. So to stop it, Omi has to execute a theoretical maneuver called the Paradise Gambit. She takes another massive future, the mid-century personal nuclear family paradise, fueled by decades of suburban optimism, and intentionally collides it with the apocalypse to neutralize the threat.
But to balance these two colossal forces, Omi needs a catalyst. Enter Margaret Sinclair. Margaret is a temporal refugee who's been trapped in the archive since 1983. During the height of the Cold War, she was simultaneously planning her perfect suburban wedding while entirely expecting to die in a nuclear strike the very next day. She held both the ultimate hope and the ultimate dread with equal conviction. When Omi puts Margaret between these colliding futures, Margaret absorbs them. She becomes a living paradox. As Margaret puts it, the secret is not to resist the contradiction. Some tensions aren't meant to be resolved, they're meant to be inhabited. And by simply holding that contradiction, she saves reality.
Margaret's transformation changes the archive entirely, which brings us to Part 3, Preventative Nostalgia Therapy, and the shift in how humanity deals with regret. With Margaret stabilizing the archive, it slowly opens up to visitors. These are ordinary people who are subconsciously drawn to the archive to reconcile with their personal failed futures. This catches the attention of a secret government branch, the Department of Preventive Nostalgia. Together, they create a therapeutic process. First, identify an emotionally significant failed future. Second, safely visit that abandoned timeline via visualization. And third, process the loss and reintegrate into the present. Take Sarah, for example, an insurance adjuster who always dreamed of being a marine biologist. She actually gets to physically step into a containment field, examine a glowing, undiscovered jellyfish in her dream lab, and finally make peace with the life she gave up.
You might be wondering why this therapy is so desperately needed. In the source text, society is suffering from an epidemic called parallel life syndrome. It's defined as the inability to appreciate actual circumstances due to a constant fixation on imaginary alternatives. And really, let's pause here, because isn't that incredibly relevant to us today? I mean, how often do we scroll through social media, constantly comparing our real, messy lives to what might have been? This therapy gives people permission to grieve their alternate lives, completely freeing them to finally live in the present.
But whenever you introduce a profound psychological shift, you get unintended consequences. Let's look at part 4, debugging tomorrow. So a whole new generation of children grows up in a society that has totally normalized this preventive nostalgia therapy. And because they're raised without the heavy burden of carrying regret, they develop a radical new temporal literacy. They don't just visit failed futures, they can perform future debugging. This is the incredible ability to consciously access potential futures while they're still malleable and optimize them before they even have the opportunity to fail. Basically, they shift humanity from passively carrying regret to actively designing tomorrow. And this brilliantly illustrates how these kids operate. Luna, Marcus, and Aisha start treating the future like a giant collaborative software project. Luna looks at animal welfare and debugs the old, failed conservation models, creating a future of integrated human, wildlife, urban habitats. Marcus optimizes renewable energy paths. Aisha designs adaptable classrooms for diverse learning styles. They even coordinate something called the Great Debugging Event, where thousands of kids globally synchronize their actions to implement these optimized, failure-proofed futures in real time.
Naturally, some adults in the story completely freak out and form a reality defense initiative. They're terrified. They think these kids are killing spontaneity and mystery, but Margaret steps in to clarify. She points out that they don't debug away uncertainty, they debug away unnecessary failures. If a kid hits an unexpected problem, they don't freeze up. They have the baseline stability to respond creatively. Removing preventable failure actually creates the safety required for true spontaneous creativity.
To bridge the gap between the kids and the adults, they have to develop new societal structures. They create intergenerational future workshops where kids use their debugging abilities alongside the historical wisdom of adults. They implement productive failure protocols, which is recognizing that some failures absolutely shouldn't be debugged away because they're vital learning experiences. And ethically, they move to opt-in future design. They respect individual autonomy so they don't force optimized futures on anyone. They just debug the barriers, making it easier for communities to optimize their own futures if they choose to.
All of this sets the stage for our final chapter, Section 5, The Archive's Dream, which is the synthesis of everything we've learned.
Deep inside the facility, Omi makes this absolutely stunning discovery. She finds a containment unit holding the failed future of the archive itself. In this failed timeline, the archive, called the recursive archive, just remained a passive, static storage facility. Omi realizes that this timeline failed entirely because of her own empathetic choices. Because she actively engaged with Margaret, with the visitors, and with the children, the archive evolved into a dynamic, collaborative workshop. It became the Dreaming Archive, a place where humanity learns to consciously design its own possibilities.
The overarching philosophy of this entire narrative is just beautiful. The ultimate lesson is that we must learn to love what didn't happen. The gap between what we expect and what reality delivers is not a void of disappointment. It's actually a highly charged, powerful creative space. Omi, Margaret, and the children teach us that the paths not taken are not wasted at all. They are essential stepping stones that help us to find what we truly want to build next. So, I want to leave you with this to chew on. Think about that abandoned dream you've been carrying around. Are you just holding on to a failed future, letting it silently drain your present? Or are you ready to visit it, process it, and use its lessons to consciously debug and design your tomorrow? Let us know in the comments, and until next time, keep learning, keep designing, and I'll see you in the next explainer.